Hi, wow, I'm on the internet for the very first time. How does this work? I'm me, but that's me too. Strange. Fun though, exciting. Good morning, everybody. A little extemporaneous video for you guys today about some of the topics of the day, which is all about masks. And I'd like to start off with a personal message to the people of Texas. I hope there's some Texans watching this. This is a message of support from across the pond from a former Missourian, obviously not a Texan, but roughly within the same general area. And I like to think kind of a similar attitude, the Lone Star State, the Show Me State, because we're not getting any truth from any news outlets. Out here we're just being told Texas is seeing a huge spike and they'll have to shut the state down. And apparently you've got a governor there that's saying wear a mask or we're shutting down the state. So there's a message of support, at least for me over here, and hopefully others, saying you are the Lone Star State. Remember the Alamo. This hit me last night, because we're not being given any actual any information or any. I mean, this is just shady shit that's going on left and right. So basically, there's a vacuum where the mind, as I'm sure a lot of you going through this, we're following people like, I'm following like James Corbett, Derek Bros, Vernon Coleman is another guy. And again, I have to keep reiterating, I've I've never followed people on YouTube. I never had any interest in, like, watch this guy. But there are people that I have turned to in the past few months, and I recently found out about this ex-GP Vernon Coleman, who is seems to be pretty sound with how he's saying things when it comes to masks and stuff, particularly things like, I learned as a kid you're not supposed to breathe in your own carbon dioxide. But so a lot of us are left to theorize. If you think what's going on is fucked up and there's a lot of lies and this actually has nothing to do with health, or if it does have something to do with health, it's kind of a boy in the plastic bubble version of health. It's like shield yourself from everything in the new normal. It's either an OCD obsessive level of health, like I don't want to ever sneeze again, or it has nothing to do with health at all. But one thing that I and a lot of other people, as I'm sure we can all agree, that this narrative of this being a really dangerous virus that we have to shield our faces from is utter bullshit. And so, in the space left to theorize, I thought, why are they hitting? Because the BBC's been hitting on Texas a lot lately. Boom, boom, Texas, huge spike, Texas. And I guess maybe Texas sounds funny coming out of a posh English newsreader's mouth, but it hit me. I thought, Texas, that's cowboys. That's cowboy land. Cowboys and cowgirls and guns and the Lone Star. Remember the Alamo, rebelliousness, standing your ground, Constitution. And I thought that would be convenient, wouldn't it? Take down Texas, right? Get all the Texans to wear face masks or shut down the state of Texas. And then you get that one out of the way. You got the, so, well, I was going to fight back against the new mask, but, I mean, even the Cowboys have been castrated. I mean, that would be the good place to start, right? You start with Texas, deball the Texans, and then the rest. I mean, California, I'm assuming, under Gavin Newsom is just begging to be, please shut us down again and tell us what to. I shouldn't say that about all Californians, because I lived in California. It is not all San Francisco and LA. There is a wide range of, there's a lot of similarities with Missouri and Texas and places like Fresno and Chico and places like that. And there have been some wonderful protests out there. It's funny, I'm sure a lot of you know this, that you never saw any news about lockdown protests. And then one night the missus was over and she said, have you been watching any of that? She said, no, you go to YouTube. You put down lockdown protests, and they were happening all over the world. And they're not a single, no coverage. The fact that in Michigan they went in armed to the Capitol building, you think that would have been newsworthy, at least so the snobs over here could have gone, horrible people with guns today, and they didn't even cover that. And I think so as much as they hate guns here and the loopy people with their guns in the States and their cuckoo Second Amendment, they erred on the side of not even airing that story out here on the BBC or Sky News, because even though they would have had the chance to go, guns was so much better, To air it would be to acknowledge that there's a sizable majority of people who have legitimate concerns about freedom, bodily autonomy, their means of earning a living. All these, and there it was, all over, like lockdown protests the world over, and we didn't hear anything about protests until George Floyd. And it also made, when I first saw those lockdown protests, I was getting a little sad, and my girlfriend says, because she's English, and she says, they fight over there in America, don't they? And I said, well, I wouldn't say they all do, but I say that you at least have a chance in certain regions. Out here there was a nominal protest in London. I don't know, there might have been others, but there was nothing like we've seen in other places like Toronto. I know has had protests. There was one in Scottsdale, and a lot of, and so the Texas thing is like, yeah, if they take care of Texas, because out here, I came out to this country because of the cultural, comedic, literary significance for me, and the fact of being around old buildings, old history, and all that, and that's being destroyed out here as well. The statues, the renaming of streets, and all that, and what we're looking at is something that's not really England, because as I say to the Texans, you are the people of the Alamo. You're the Lone Star State, you're the Cowboys. You need to summon that energy and tell your fucking leaders to go fuck themselves. And here, these are the people of the Battle of Britain, Churchill's few, Dunkirk. We need to summon all that up again and realize that the enemy's it's right here. The enemy's here. And it's the leadership, and these leaders, as we know, are probably puppets of some WHO, International Monetary Fund, whatever, borderless international organizations are the ones saying mask now. But in this country, I keep going back to my theory is that he didn't want to sack Cummings because Cummings is the algorithmic creep that got Boris in. He's the computer nut, and couldn't sack him because, who knows, couldn't sack him because he either has blackmail on Boris or because he is just, I'm the boss and I'm the new kind of AI freak. I don't wear a suit. I'm the t-shirt weirdo with Elon Musk, my aggregate IQ t-shirt and I bike to work and I'm whatever this freak is. But we're the new freaks that rule the world, and we do it internationally without borders and all that. So that's my theory, is he didn't want to sack him, but then Boris said, but I'm Mr. Freedom and I'm opening things up now. Things that should have stayed open, but now it gets to come through you now, so you get to be Mr. Freedom. They didn't need to be closed at all, as a lot of us are discovering, but now, lucky you, now that they have been closed, you get to cut the ribbon on the brand new opening of the new normal ship. But he couldn't do that, because obviously you can't separate by 2 meters on the tube or the public transport. You can't separate by 2 meters. So then all of a sudden, that was when masks on public transport all over the UK became mandatory. That's why I've not traveled anywhere too, because of money. This asshole wants to go out and spend. Go out and spend. It's like, motherfucker, not everybody went to fucking Eton, you dumbass. And not to mention, it's not just the spending the money, fuckhead, but you've made pubs unrecognizable. I dread going out for anything nowadays. I went out to the queue at the Co-op the other day, and I'm getting louder and louder, and I'll just show up at the queue and I'll say, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. And if we keep letting them get away with this, they're going to do more things. Unless I'm mad. I don't think I'm mad though. I think I have seen more masks. So that was what it was. The 15th of June, mask mandatory on public transport. Now I know there's all sorts of excuses. You can look up. Say I have breathing difficulties. There are caveats, but that does not mean that even if you have those caveats, you don't have to sit there and tell your details to somebody with some little digital device who wants to know your name, your address. Why aren't you wearing a mask? Okay, what's your name? Right? Fuck this. Information, data hungry creeps. So that if you don't wear a mask for these various reasons, you will have to give us all your fucking information. Snoops. Look, Cummings runs this country. So I looked at places like Texas, and please show us the way. Please show us the way. Don't wear the masks. Tell that governor to go fuck himself, and show us that cowboy spirit still lives on, and maybe that will inspire people out here. Because right now I'm the local crazy American. I know it. I can feel. I'll think it's. There's certain things I'll question, but I don't really. It's progress, isn't it? It's like, no, it's not. It's not progress. It's not. If you let them get away with the mask, then you're going to let them get away with the app and the knocking on your door and saying stay indoors, and the fucking vaccine that they're not even testing on animals, that they're rushing through at lightning speed, and that they have put clauses in this shit to indemnify themselves from any lawsuits if anything goes wrong. And if that vaccine is so wonderful, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but Oxford, if you don't know, Oxford is developing a vaccine, or they're one of the many people that are rushing through a vaccine because money, right? Oxford, and there's been, we need a vaccine, we need a vaccine, we need a vaccine. This country needs a vaccine, vaccine, the horrible death rate. And they take the fucking vaccine and they go all the way to fucking Africa. And I've said this in a video before. I hope maybe the Africans will save us. Maybe they'll rise up because they have less to lose. Like, go fuck yourself and shove that vaccine up your fucking ass. Which I heard there was a big protest down there. But, the point is, they take it from Oxford, and instead of going, it's ready for use here, it's like, that fucker's not safe, so you're going and you want us to believe that you're not using them as guinea pigs? They are guinea pigs. Why aren't you people arrested? This is, God, I can't believe I'm saying it. It's Hitlerian. It's Mengele-esque, to say the least. That they would develop something in Oxford and take it all the way to Africa. What does that say? That says that Africans are guinea pigs. And if you're in Africa and you're watching this, you have at least one person here who's in support of you. Anything that you got to do to, I don't know, but stop Bill Gates or whatever. I mean, I was a guy who used to do comedy. I didn't get to do it a lot because our world has been made so stupid. Nobody really knows what talent is anymore, whether that's not just comedy, but whether it's science, journalism, teaching. All these noble professions have been taken over by morons, fucking idiots. Let's see what you're tweeting. Donna in Hampshire, right? These are idiots. Really stupid people, and they must be fucking stopped. So again, a message to Texas: please don't, please do everything you can. I mean, you have, and help us. I mean, I hate to say it, as an American living over here, help. And I know there's a list of countries that, there's all these countries in Europe now because there's these thing called air bridges that they've just fucking pulled out of their ass, air bridges. But there's bad countries. And one of the bad countries is the USA. That's a really bad country because of the infection. And what's this? Serbia is a bad country. You know why Serbia is a bad country? And if there's any Serbians watching, very much love for you. This was why I believe they gave us George Floyd. This was why they didn't wait for the cause of death to be determined, or the motive of death. I'm not talking about the cause of death, I'm talking about the motive. What Derek Chauvin's motive. This is why they didn't wait for it, and they accelerated and they covered the protest from every fucking angle. And the WHO was saying racism is a pandemic as well. This is why they did all this shit, because people like me and people in Texas and Canada and Africa and Serbia and the whole world over, we're grappling with something much bigger, which is governments overstepping their bounds. And not just governments, international bodies accountable to no are overstepping their motherfucking bounds. And that's why racism, black, white. Let's get the common, dirty, unwashed people fighting about black, white. At least in the West, we don't have the kind of outward tyranny that we can demonstrate, in certain third world countries. But in the West, what we'll do is we'll just give them the big racism thing again and talk about statues. Now, of course, they shouldn't tear down statues. They shouldn't tear down beautiful gardens next to care homes either, which is what they're doing now. And I've mentioned this before. They rammed through these backhander projects when the lockdown began. All the residents here know that wall was torn down and those trees chainsawed down in clear view of the care home, whose property that was, began the day of lockdown. right? That's the kind of shit that people, hey, who knows? I mean, this could be like a deal with the mask manufacturers. I don't know. I'll try to talk through this, but I hope I'm making somewhat coherent sense. So a message to the people in Texas and a message to the people in Serbia. Apparently what happened in Serbia was there was I think what 300 people got infected. So there was a 300 people got infected, and then and I could be misquoting this, but apparently they said the government was saying lockdown. That's it, and the people rose up because that's what the people need to do. That is an appropriate protest. An appropriate protest is when you say you're telling me that even though I'm healthy, I have to wear a fucking mask. You're overstepping your bounds. Whereas with the George Floyd, it's like, could we wait to see what the motive was? He knew the guy, right? We don't know what it may well have been racism, but we don't know what the motive was. But we're starting to have a lot of questions about why has my livelihood, even though it wasn't much of a livelihood, it did earn me some spare cash. I'm able, I got the Patreon page, patreon.com/Will Franken. Huge backlog, by the way. 3 years of archive sketches, essays, little mini films, whatever, live shows. There's live shows that only the some very good ones as well. Because I used to never film myself performing, so every now and then somebody would film me, and oh, you also get this. This is the best part. All those clips that Comedy Unleashed, the free speech assholes who are actually, with the sort of eugenicists that help assholes like Cummings get in power. All those videos that they yanked down, very kind fans who had downloaded them before it gave me them. So they reached out and they said, I heard about these assholes censoring you, these anti-censorship people censoring you. I actually saved your videos if you wanted, their performances from that night. So those are available if you become a patron at patreon.com/Will Franken. You get that whole back catalog, And that was nice. I was like, that was a really nice gift to be able to give the patrons and say, because you people are showing your support and your patronage and your encouragement for whatever it is that I do. And then in this case, the John Milton definitive audiobook reading of Paradise Lost. Because of that, here's another gift for you. All the clips that you can't find anymore because Comedy Unleashed decided, nope, we're taking them all, and nobody can see them because he asked me questions about eugenics. They're out there. So, little plug. Hope you don't mind. See, I'm worried about not being entertaining. I mean, you have to understand. I'm doing 9-hour shifts on Milton every day. It's because it's not just a simple reading. It's like da 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 da. It's just the full-on production with sound effects and accents and music too. I mean, I composed songs, and it's not easy to sing blank verse, but actually, my girlfriend sang it, and it sounds really beautiful. And there's a gospel element to it, and so that's 9 hours a day, just very disciplined. I get up, spend 9 hours, and then every now and then I find a window of time just to say what the fuck is going on with the world. So Texas, Serbia, Africa, you got one transplanted Missourian over here who's encouraging you to say no to this bullshit. I wish the guy just laughed at me yesterday. I know this. I pop up in the queue and I say, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. And he just, and I said, are you laughing because you think I'm the crazy American, or are you laughing because you know this is bullshit? I have a feeling you're laughing because you're probably embarrassed. And I'm sorry, and I'm not usually one of those people that just, I'm a recluse. I don't really talk to strangers. But here's the thing: Boris Johnson wants to make face masks mandatory in shops. So now we got to, up to this point in my life, I will say that largely everything has been theoretical. It's like, if they do this, then that. If they do this, then that. If they do this and that. Well, they are doing it, And it wouldn't matter where I was. They'd be doing it in America right now, too. They're saying, here they're saying, wear a mask unless you have a car. Unless you're rich enough to buy a new in Boris's recently opened car showrooms, you have to wear a mask. Well, there goes travel for me. There goes my right to free travel. Now they're going to say you have to wear a mask in shops. So if I had the money, which I don't, I would buy 5 years of groceries today when I go out to Asda, because I am not putting on a fucking mask, and I also don't want to be forced into fucking ordering online. And why is he doing this? What is this thing with masks? I've seen more masks out. I'll tell you, this is a funny story. Well, I think it's a funny story. I don't know because I don't have an audience. I can't hear. I have an audience, I guess, but I don't hear the. You know, I actually made some notes. So I go to the co-op. If you're in the States, it's like a what is it? It's a grocery store, and there's a queue. And the guy I get in the queue, and the guy in front of me is like a motorcycle looking guy, shaved head, big guy, leather vest, covered in tattoos. And on his bicep, he's got Guy Fawkes, but not just any Guy Fawkes. It's the head and torso, a dueling pistol in each hand, hands across the chest, and underneath in red on his bicep, the word resist. Do you know what else the guy had on? A mask. And I said something about, the pieces of the puzzle. Puzzles can be difficult, but as long as you start with the premise that the pieces have to fit together. And it wasn't any math. It wasn't one of those fancy ones that had like the anarchy symbol on it, designed by, people who aren't anarchists. It wasn't any of that. I've seen some with rhinestones now. What the fuck are we? Look, I know a lot of the world has lost its mind, and I get that. It was a slow, steady brainwashing experience, whether that was climate change, whether that was a man can be a woman if he says he's a woman, we've seen it all happen. Laptops mean education. We've seen the slow, steady brainwash. But I don't know if enough of us managed to maintain a healthy cynicism. There's this thing about comfort culture, and I think for working classes or people, I guess called ordinary people the world over who have to worry from month to month where their rent is going to come from, especially now more than ever. I think there's something in us where we're kind of used to living without comfort from time to time. We do without things. This motherfucker commented on my smoking the other day. If you smoke, you ain't broke. So I threw that George Orwell quote back at him from on Wigan Pier, where he says, these little that you want them to eat brown bread and vegetables, and they're just not going to do it. They want that small little bit of something, which for me is smoking, And if that is the case, when somebody needs to tell all the poor people the world over, even homeless people, that if they smoke, they ain't broke, Stupid. Thank you, Joe Wicks, for your Pilates lesson of the day. I shouldn't put that. I had a girlfriend once who, she was a Pilates teacher, and she said, "Do you want to try it?" And I said, "Yeah," because it looked so easy, and then it was very hard to balance. I find very difficult, especially for a tall man. But those were different times. Didn't have to wear a mask everywhere. Now Nicola Sturgeon is the First Minister of Scotland, and my hunch with her has always been she's just a dumb person. She's not a Dominic Cummings. She's not, this is what you do. And the algorithm says we're going to work with data, and software. That's Dominic Cummings. Yeah, we're not going to talk to the people. We're going to look what the software says. Data, and software. Software, algorithm, data. Right? He knows what's going on. Or he might not, but he certainly is he wants to steer things. He's a steering motherfucker. So when Boris says something, skateboard kid, Cummings, said it first. But with Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, I've always felt that she's just another stupid politician who got some power. Now she said yesterday, because face masks are compulsory in Scottish shops. You have to wear them in Scotland. And the BBC did their cute little story where there were people, as long as it makes people safe. Well, actually, as long as it makes people safe, what's it matter? Put on the mask. Don't be so selfish. So they did their cute little thing. You're a good person if you wear a mask, and you're killing people if you don't wear a mask. They did that little puff piece. Nicola Sturgeon says, well, let me see if I can get the quote here. I'm going to get the exact quote so I don't misquote. I'm trying to do actual research now. The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, says wearing a face covering to the shops should become as automatic as putting a seatbelt on in a car. Oh, that not clear. Sometimes when I look at pull up the internet or whatever, it makes the audio crackle. So she wants wearing a face mask in shops to become as automatic as putting on a seatbelt in a car. And my first thought was, do you mean we have to wear masks forever? because I'm old enough to remember when the seatbelt law, at least in Missouri, came into effect. And I didn't agree with it then, and I don't agree with it now. You know, I only wear a seatbelt. I never, you know, it's funny in an airplane, even in an airplane, which I don't think I'll ever get on one again. Even in an airplane, when it came time to land and they said put on your seatbelt, I would always just drape it over me and kind of put my hand down like that because I wanted to. You know, so they come by, they think I'm gonna, I just don't like that. Yeah, we're gonna buckle up now. I feel safer without the seatbelt. But also it's this bodily autonomy. You know, like if I want to go careening out of the windscreen, you know, after a crash and go 60 feet, and like, that's my choice, isn't it? And I guess the argument they would always say is, well, yeah, but then the healthcare costs that you incur, and it's like, yeah, I know, but really, you know, if you let them say one thing, like smoking bans, right? It's all about extracting choice. So if there was one pub who decided, you know, we're willing to take a risk and allow smoking in our pub because a lot of our customers like to smoke indoors, that doesn't, but, you know, the neighboring pub, they can decide not to allow smoking. That's fine. But our pub will allow smoking. There would be a little bit of competition and choice. And it would be a risk, too. They would actually take a risk and say, this may not work. People might not want to come to our pub because we allow smoking, but we're going to take the gamble. You know, but no, it had to be a blanket. No this, no smoking. But the mask thing is something entirely different. That means cover up your face, breathe your own carbon dioxide, and not because you're sick, but because in this new social code world, which is beginning to resemble China in a lot of ways, which does lead the mind to wonder, are we doing this because they actually own large portions of this country? Who's pulling this? It's all theory. Of course, it's conspiracy theory. My mind has broadened when it comes to conspiracy theories, you know, because conspiracy theory doesn't mean I believe the earth is flat or I believe the moon landings were fake. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means, to me, take Jeffrey Epstein, right? Here's the Jeffrey Epstein case. All you have is conspiracy theory. There's the Acosta thing, there's, you know, the stuff that we know from the victims, what happened. But other than that, in light of that cunt Ghislaine Maxwell coughing up some fucking names and some fucking information and the surveillance stuff to be made, you know, all the names, everything to be made available to the public, which it hasn't, all you have in that vacuum is conspiracy theory. So more of us believe in conspiracy theories than we like to think. I would say that more of us do. I think even if you're saying, I don't necessarily think all the money Rishi Sunak is promising Britain is actually going to be used for what they're saying it's going to be used for. Even that's conspiracy, if you want to really broaden the definition. You know, so sometimes that really is all you have. But she says automatic is wearing a seatbelt in a car, which the first thing that implied to me was, you mean it's going to become a permanent fixture, right? This is because I'm not sick, I have to wear a mask because I might be sick but not realize it. And that way I'm protecting, right? Once you start to consider the paradigm that this is actually not a real plague, once that gets into the head, then all of this stuff becomes obviously even more nefarious in its intent. I'm being forced into being a good civil person by covering my mouth up. I mean, I had a theory about comedy the other day. You know, not that most comedians were in danger of saying anything brave or interesting or different, but still, theoretically, you could have a situation where somebody could get in front of a microphone, a satirist, say, and make a very persuasive case about why this is all bullshit. And you might have a crowd of 150 to 200 people who might get together and say, you know what, yeah, you're right. Like, let's move closer. Fuck this social distancing. I didn't think of it like that. You know, maybe that could be a possibility. Why so long on that? Because socially, it's hard to social. We can have outdoor circuses now. Did you know that we can have outdoor circuses? I thought we had an outdoor circus. It was called the George Floyd riots. That wasn't it. But apparently we can have sword swallowers now. So she says, like wearing a seatbelt. In my family, we never wore seatbelts. When the law came into effect, we never wore seatbelts. And the only time you might put one on is when there was a cop behind you. And all of a sudden, and even then you wouldn't click it, right? You just drape it over and you kind of clench it like that as the cop goes by. The local cop. Usually it was a small town cop, nothing to do because there wasn't a lot of crime happening. Okay, come on forward, I got a seatbelt. Come on forward, you want to stay there, sir? Please. Sir, please, hands on the thing. Hand, sir, please. You got a seatbelt. Come on, thing. Seatbelt 5. All right, so I step out car seat. Actually, you know what it was? It was a 10. At the time, it was a $10 fine. But back then, $10 was a lot of money. But my dad never wore a seatbelt. My mother never. My mother. You know, I went out for my dad's funeral 2 years ago, and I got to drive around my mother in her old beat up pickup truck, and none of us. It never even came. Aren't you going to buckle your seatbelt? We just, my mother in her mid-70s got in the truck, doesn't put the seatbelt on because we're from Missouri, and we get in the truck, and we don't. I guess we don't have time to put the seatbelt on. We just try to drive responsibly in our little small town. It was nice. It was a nice feeling to just get in, start the truck, and fucking go without this. Better stay in compliance with the government. Safety first. Well, that was, that is one thing. I mean, that is true. You get into a car wreck. I see the point. You get into a car and you get into a wreck. You go careening through the window. This is something else entirely. This is all the data that we've told you about the coronavirus, especially the motherfucker who gave us the computer model, Neil Ferguson, in this country from the Imperial College, the Bill Gates funded Imperial College research. That was all wrong. He turned out he didn't believe in the lockdown, as did Dominic Cummings didn't believe in the lockdown either. And now you're telling us we got to cover up our mouths. I know you went to Eton, but you're stupid. You are stupid people. Whether you're the little pipsqueak Rishi, I don't know if they all went to Eton, but the little pipsqueak Rishi Sunak, the chancellor, $5 billion for this and $6 billion and $7 billion. I mean, not every job can be saved. Oh, you think, motherfucker? You think? With all your weird little fucking regulations about separate people, my old calf that I used to go to, you think, motherfucker, not every job can be saved? Let me guess, maybe the jobs that can be saved might be green jobs? I really resent that, this idea of retraining people. He's been talking about that, retraining people for green jobs, for smart green jobs. And everybody who voted for these motherfuckers, like the woman down the street, she says, I'm loyal to the party. I don't like what they're doing, but I've always been loyal to the party. And I said, but they're not conservatives. And it's so hard to explain to people. I was involved with Comedy Unleashed. I think I met some people there that they knew, they thought were really bad. I didn't know who these fuckers were. And now, like, I'm watching documentaries, I'm going, I think that motherfucker was at the club. Like Matthew Elliott apparently was this big Brexit guy with comedy. He was there. It just, I said, I feel like I know, and I know what they're like. They're the kind of people that if you question them about things that are as abhorrent as eugenics, they make you disappear. They take down everything you've done for them. Right? And luckily, so far, that's all they can do. Because if it was a different time, they'd fucking kill you or they'd put you on a show trial. It's a weird, like China, it's a weird fusion of free market and communism, and a lot of people have said that this is what you could have got. You could have got this under Corbyn, but honestly, I don't like Corbyn at all, man. I don't like Corbyn at all. There's a lot, the anti-Semitism stuff. That was his baby all the way because of his connections. He that was a green light with Corbyn, like, and how it's time to hate the Jews. All those creeps came out of the woodwork from him. But he was talking about things like saving the high street, the old shops and stuff, the local shops. Well, those are going to be fucked because we're going to be retrained for brand new green jobs. Or build. There's a crew of 6 people building 6 homes. Every day it's 6 people. And you know why? Probably because those are shit homes. There was a woman that died when a crane up in London, East London, a couple of days ago, a crane fell and pretty much divided a house in half and killed the pensioner there. And I'd be willing to bet that has something to do with the new slogan of the country is build, build, build. Build. In other words, so there's no message for people who just, they had a way of living, right? A lot of us were renting. They were renting flats. They had a way of living, a way of making ends meet. And what we really want is just kind of like, let's just go back to the way that was. But the Chancellor and Boris are saying, get out there and spend, get out there and buy a new house. Rishi Sunak is saying there's a tax thing that they can do to make you save £5,000 if you move into a new home. So who the fuck is going to come out of this apparently a depression that's going to set us back 300 years in this country? Something they say it's going to be worse than this. Who's going to come out of this and buy a new home? Who is thinking like that? And I know you could say, well, these are stupid Etonian fucks, which they are, rich boys. They're rich boys who've never worked a day in their life, so they don't understand the human condition, really. But the message is only go out there and buy a new home. Upward mobility, right? Not just, can I just fucking have the life that I had before? Because I was kind of okay with that. I had nature down here. I was naturally reclusive anyway, but now I'm even more reclusive because I can't go to my bookshop because they've got a bookshop rule now that says only one person can come in at a time by appointment. So I can't just come in and linger over these old manuscripts anymore. So you're taking that away from me. And believe me, this is not a self-pity party. There's a lot of us that have had shit taken away from us that's much worse. People have not been able to hug dying relatives because they took the government at face value. They believed the government. And you know what happened with Cummings? Cummings wasn't sacked. Not only was Cummings not sacked, the deeper questions about him were never answered. And now we're in a situation where Boris Johnson is going to turn around and say face masks to be mandatory in shops. We have got to stop these people. And the only way we can do it, I got to tell you, and I know I have friends I have a friend in California who's the boss of a company, and she's got employees under her, and I get it. She has to wear a mask. She's required to wear a mask, and she's required to make her employees wear a mask. She may not believe in it, but it's the fucking economy. But for those of us who I said, I don't have to go into work. My work's been taken. If it was taken away before by the politically correct and then the politically manipulative. The PC and then the anti-PC, one and the same sides of the coin. Just bland, talentless people. Internet addictions. I get hatred. I get online hatred on Twitter. Well, then fucking get off Twitter. You're part of the problem, man. Do something long form. Nobody ever does anything long form. You don't get much longer form than Paradise Lost. A 16-hour fucking reading. That's long form. Because I'm going to be dead and in the ground one day, and I'm going to leave this ugly world behind. And it's not entirely ugly, as I'll tell you in a second. But I'm going to leave this, what's being this reshaping of the world in the image of the creeps and the losers and the talentless. The people who can't. Dominic Cummings can't do anything of his own. He can't write a sonata. He can't write a play. He probably not even capable of writing a haiku. I should put down haikus. I imagine that is probably pretty, but it's short form. Can't do anything of his own. That's why he's a software freak. That's what it attracts losers. It attracts people who had nothing to offer of their own, and they're ruling the world, and they're calling the shots. For me, it was Bill Gates. As I said before, my girlfriend and I, we were about a week and a half washing the hands, taking this seriously, and then all of a sudden Bill Gates pops up on a celebrity with Stephen Colbert saying, "So Bill, what's the next step for a vaccine?" And I, along with many people, were saying, I knew this guy was a weirdo. I knew he was obsessed with health and Africa, but I never looked into him. But now that this shit's going on, why are we talking to a software guy? And why is Matt Hancock saying we're going to try out a track and trace app? What the fuck? And it gets weirder and weirder every day. And as my girlfriend said recently, if there's one or two things iffy, but if there's 1,000 fucking things every day. So back to Nicola Sturgeon. I wanted to become like as automatic as wearing a seatbelt, which to me implies it's never going to go away. We'll always have to wear the face mask, and I'm never going to wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask. And I don't know what that means. I have played out scenarios in my mind, and I don't know how alarmist this is, but I played out scenarios where I get arrested because I refuse to put a mask on. I'm not going to do this because I know that's a lie. I know that's something that Boris and Dominic Cummings are kind of making up as they go along and probably getting helped out in their decision making by international bodies that have nothing to do with this country's autonomy. Remember, you got to remember that this was supposed to be a motherfucking Brexiteer. He wasn't at first. He was a Remainer. Then he became a Brexiteer because he's an opportunist motherfucker, right? Just like the cowards Andrew Doyle and Andy Shaw. They were opportunist motherfuckers, had no principles. But then they think, well, there might be a party over this way. That's what Boris was. Boris is a party man. Cummings, same thing. No actual principles, just wanted to win, right? Didn't actually believe in British sovereignty. Just wanted to win. Those are the creeps that fuck everything up. Because is there anything that says sovereignty and autonomy here? No, probably China probably owns a good portion of this country, as we know they do, right? Ever since another fucking loser Tory, Cameron. Right, so there's no actual autonomy. These decisions are being made, not, there's not a British decision. Just like in Texas, it's not a Texas decision. This is a decision coming from an international body full of idiots, quite frankly. Quite frankly, boy, you got tough there. Quite frankly, yes, idiots. I mean, what is the virus? They don't know what the virus is. They were friends with China. Now they're condemning China. They don't know anything. International bodies are shit. That's why I supported Brexit in the beginning. I didn't need any algorithms. I didn't need Dominic Cummings to sway me. I heard about the referendum, and I quite clearly came down on the side. Well, less politicians is better. Less international bodies interfering with the nation's sovereignty. And yet, how short-sighted was I? Because obviously we don't have any sovereignty. Obviously, the tech guys and the tech creeps who run this world are telling Dominic Cummings what the story of the day is. And the story of the day is masks are going to be compulsory in shops. And I see myself getting arrested. I'm playing these through. Like, I'm not wearing a mask, and I'm not giving you my information. One thing that I noticed out here a few years ago, they'll fine you if you drop your cigarette on the ground. Some guy will come over with a body cam. I said, excuse me, sir, that's an 80-pound fine. And I said, well, I'll pick it up now and put it in the bin. He goes, no, it's too late now, sir. It's 80 pounds, and they give you this thing. And if you're new to the country, I guess you take it seriously. So you pay the fine. That sucks. Then you get to be very nervous about where you put your cigarettes. And yet, when the guy went away, I said, you're not even a cop. And they call them community enforcement officers. They're not police. They're just people that walk around with body cams in black suits. Right? And the amount of this is the most surveilled country. Did you know that they have fucking, that's one of the things I picked up on when I first moved out here, the fact that there were surveillance cameras everywhere you go. See, because I would like to write something on that construction project that they're like, who got the backhander for this? Or who wanted this? Nobody wanted this. Not a single person in this neighborhood wanted that to happen. But somebody got a backhander. Some corrupt politician got a fucking backhander for allowing that to happen. 6 new luxury homes that aren't luxury. If 6 people can build them, there's no craftsmanship. These are factory-made prefab luxury homes. We're on the up and up. That's the message in this. I don't know what the message about your economy is, where you're going, but the message here seems to be the big businesses are going to survive. The small businesses better get with the program or they're fucked. So yeah, it's all about and move into a new home. Hey, did you suffer from the coronavirus? Well, Rishi Sunak has made some new tax exemption thing where you can move into a new home. I don't want to move into a new home. I'm happy where I am, and I was happy doing what I wanted to do. And I didn't realize how happy I was not wearing a mask, because that was who I was anyway. I went through my whole life not being in China. My whole life. I've never been to China. I went through my whole life not wearing a mask. And I didn't realize how happy I was for that. And now you're telling me I got to wear a fucking mask. If I want my food. If you want your food, you got to wear a mask. Stupid. So again, to the people of Texas, I think it's because of your reputation. I think it's because let's get the Cowboys out of the way. Right, so there's no more James Dean and Giants. Well, actually, he was a bad guy in Giants. What's a better example of a good Texan? But actually, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What a great film that was! And Ennio Morricone just passed away, as you know. not of COVID-19. I'm surprised they could have used him too. They said, and it worked when he died with COVID-19, but they were gracious enough to allow him to just die from being 91. That was nice of them. That he wasn't appropriated as a statistic like Tim Brooke Taylor was and others, died with COVID-19. He died around or about the evening of COVID-19. Apparently COVID-19 looked into the window. So Texas, yeah, that's the idea. Get rid of the Cowboys. Get rid of the Cowboys. And the Cowgirls. But I'm telling you, I'm watching you people. I had a tear coming down. I had a tear. My girlfriend says, you didn't know there were lockdown protests? I said, no, because if you watch the news, and there they are, lockdown protests. And I said, so I'm explaining to her, I said, she doesn't know how it works in America. And I said, well, in America, you've got the states system. And theoretically, it is, these days, it's kind of luck of the draw. You could find yourself in an unfortunate situation where you're in, I don't know, San Francisco, right? And it's all, whoosh, we're going to do what the international government says because we are good people and we hate, we hate individual autonomy and whoosh. Unless it's abortion. If it's abortion, our bodies are sovereign. That's, this guy over here, I'm going to talk to this fucking guy, see if he's upset about this. He is taking his camera and going over the wall to take a photo of that. And I want to, hold on just a second. I want to see if he's he was an ordinary looking guy taking a photo of this, and he says he's upset about it, and he's going to go to the count. And people are fucking mad about this shit. The people of this town did not want this thing to happen. So it's nice. I'm seeing more and more people say it's a bit too late. The planning permission for this thing, they sat on their asses for 3 years, and then the day lockdown started, they chainsawed the trees down and knocked the fucking hole through the wall, and now there's hideous fucking rust-colored frames poking out of the ground in front of the care home. And it's so strange. And my neighbor has been coming up. I've been making friends with my neighbor, and he's been up a few times. And I said, do you realize how insane this is? Like, you get the news on in the morning, and I hear about Boris. Of course I care about people in care homes. Of course I care. And I'm looking at this tableau of wanton destruction, because he's a fucking fat Etonian idiot who thinks the only kind of work ordinary people do is they're either wearing a hard hat or they're working in green smart city internet jobs. He's a stupid prick who's never worked a day in his life. I just saw that photo of him with Ghislaine Maxwell, Boris. He's sitting they look like two boozy, spoiled university toffs sitting at some table. It looks like a club. But it probably is just some fucking, Westminster set. Who knows? But yeah, he knew her. He knows her. Creeps. But let me tell you, because it's been 48 minutes in, and then I've got to go face the demons at Asda. I've got to go get my groceries while I still can. Get my groceries, because I'm not fucking wearing a mask, and because I was in the shop the other day, and I was looking, I see more masks, and they're getting more elaborate. I saw the rhinestones. There's one with rhinestones over there. People with rhinestones, Spider-Man, little kids in masks, old people in masks, and I'm just thinking, when will somebody must do these people a favor and tell them that they don't need to wear them. Because if we let them get away with this, which we apparently are, at least in this country, they're going to get away with so much other shit. And all of a sudden, all this stuff that was just theory before. Vernon Coleman, this old guy in the chair, he calls himself, this ex-GP, sometimes he'll interrupt what he's saying and say, I can't believe I'm saying this. I feel like I'm mad saying this, but I do believe this. And I believe it as well. They're this slow thing until they get to the point where, like, okay, you were fine with the masks. I thought maybe they tried the mandatory face mask in shops in Scotland first, right? Because let's try it out on the Glaswegians, because they're known for being rebellious, and William Wallace and all this brave Scotland thing. Let's get them to wear the mask. It's just nice to help other people and be nice and courteous and be a nice person and social good. Let's get them to do that. Let's take care of Texas over here. Like, well, I tell you what, I was about to say I live in a free country, but if it's freedom or health, well, God damn it, I'm for health. Let's get all those people taken care of, and then we can work this shit in England, right? Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, it worked in Scotland, didn't it? I mean, it's what you got to do, isn't it? Keep the fight. No, it's not what you got to do, man. We're talking about freedom here. This is a fundamental thing. They want you to cover up your own mouth, breathe your own carbon dioxide, and not even because you're sick, but built on the premise, the flimsy pretext that you may have something that you don't feel. You understand? We just gotta say no collectively. For those of us who can do it, and I get that people are compromised now because I get it. They fucked the economy 6 ways till Sunday, and people are fucking scared about their income. But for those of us who don't have to answer to an employer, don't wear the fucking mask. For those of us who are furloughed or out of work or whatever, don't put on the fucking mask. I wrote this thing about the resist tattoo guy yesterday. The mask he was wearing. So here he is with Guy Fawkes, resist, but he's wearing a mask, and it's not even the fancy mask. It's the basic little mask that you need in order to be in compliance with the government, scientific, technological, and celebrity narrative. And he's got resist. And it's not surprising because we know most of the people with the Guy Fawkes. Well, now is your time to fucking resist. Now is your time. Take the fucking thing off, especially that you don't need it. It's not. When I saw that, it wasn't mandatory in shops. It will be now. But now that it's not, take the fucking thing off. Because what they've done is they've seen. Well, yeah, let's say half of the people in England are now wearing masks already. But half of them, and it's increasing. And I have noticed more masks, especially even out here in this small town. I've seen more masks. And I wrote about this yesterday, and I told this story. I said because it was a humorous, sad anecdote. I said there was a guy with a Guy Fawkes tattoo, big motorcycle guy, resist, wearing a mask. I'm gonna tell you a beautiful story. I'll close on a beautiful story because I'm looking at these. I don't even know what it is I do anymore. I'm doing Milton. I'm doing the Paradise Lost Project, and thank you for your patience. And if you want to support me, as Milton says in Book 7, half yet remains unsung. And I am currently through the sound layering for Book 7. I've got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to do. Every book I treat like a double album. And the weird thing is, everybody's saying second spike, second wave in October or November, and that's when I'm expecting, hopefully, touch wood, expecting to have this thing done, and I have no idea what shape the world is going to be in then. But that's what I'm doing, and if you want to support me and help me finish the second half of that, please go to patreon.com/Will Franken. Anyway, I wrote something about this image of a big biker guy with resist wearing the face mask, and then somebody had commented and said, paraphrasing obviously, because I don't have my comment paperwork in front of me. And he says, it is possible to be a rebel and not be a selfish asshole. So the implication is he's still a rebel. This guy doesn't know. He's by de facto defending the mask guy. You can still be a rebel but not be a selfish asshole. So the implication is if you don't wear a mask, you're a selfish asshole who doesn't care about the safety of others. And who would have thought, in a different time, that wouldn't have flown. In this time, it flies. Because we're a spoiled people. We're spoiled. I keep thinking of Zoolander, that image. I thought that was a very funny movie. And I'm not a Will Ferrell fan, and I'm not really a Ben Stiller fan, but that movie I just think is very funny. It captures shallowness brilliantly. And there's a scene where Ben Stiller is wearing footed pajamas, and I think he's eating yogurt, and he's with his other supermodel friends in their flat. And I found that such a funny image, but I actually think now, like, they, the plushy, the carpet, the rabbit pajamas, you see all these, like, do women wear sexy lingerie, or is it all fluffy little cozy things, and then onesies, and comfortable, and mental health awareness, and hashtagging, and love is love, and it's a comfortable culture that again, if you're an ordinary person, or if you've had to work in your life, you don't really need that shit. And you also, like I say, like a lot of people where I come from, they believe in God because they're kind of used to doing without. you're used to not having the luxuries or the modern amenities of life, so you tend to say the odd prayer every now and then. You tend to want to believe in something a little bit higher, and you tend to see things in a more cynical, or this in Missouri, the show me state. You seem, well, I don't know about mask. You better show me some proof. There is that attitude, and I call on Missourians as well. I call on anybody, the world, Serbia, Africa, wherever the fuck you are. Sweden, by the way, I just found out Sweden's one of the bad countries that has to be. They're not allowed because they didn't do a lockdown, and they're not wearing masks. So they're one of the countries that, no, they don't get the special air bridge thing that these good countries do, who wear masks and take it up the arse for the WHO. I also wrote yesterday, I said, in a bit of, I should have started with this actually. I should have started with something really funny. Maybe I did. I forgot what I said at the beginning, but that the government is now advising that latex gimp wear, a dog collar, and a dildo up the arse may prove effective in defeating COVID-19. Because that's really what it is. Bend over and take it up the ass for what, I don't know what you people are planning on doing with this, but you are, and I want to find, if anybody knows where to find these, I saw there's these two women that were speaking before, I guess, a city council somewhere. And I loved their speeches, and they were saying that's where I've been using this phrase a lot, overstepped your bounds. It's not a phrase I often use, but I saw these women not wearing masks and saying, you are overstepping your bounds with this mask thing. So I wouldn't mind seeing the full testimony of that, just to, kind of feel good. I feel good about the human race when I see things like that happening. Like this, we're going to be okay because people still know what's at stake. A lot of people don't. A lot of people are like the people wearing the footed pajamas in Zoolander, just eating their yogurt and going, I don't know, I could raise a fuss, but who'd listen? Oh, you could raise a fuss, just don't wear the mask. Don't wear it, man. I don't want to go down your fucking Orwellian shit. I don't want to go down it. But they've made the world unrecognizable. That's how some people think COVID. I'm going to do another half an hour. You don't mind, do you? Am I? Yes, who knows? I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. But that's all right. Maybe that's the best. Yeah, let's do this, and then I'll do the positive story about life, right? Because that's really what this is about. Some fucked up humans. Bill Gates is one of them. I imagine Elon Musk talking about a cyber neural link. Dominic Cummings is one. And just a really fucked up humans with neither heart nor head, right? You can say, oh, Dominic Cummings is really smart because he programs out. No, he's not smart. He's just a fucking software whore. That's all he is. And he wanted to win, and it didn't matter if he had to cheat to do it or lie. He wanted to win. He's not a smart person. He's not an innovator. Just like all of those software tech weirdos, they're not innovators. They're not creative people, right? Neither a heart nor a head. They are trying to reshape the world in their image. I believe in God. I'm an old-fashioned nut job in that respect. I believe in God. I'm one of those weirdos that, at 47 years old in this new trendy hip hashtag age, you're not really supposed. I believe in energy forces. I believe there's universes, whatever. But I'm not Russell Brand. I actually believe in God. Not a man on a throne, but I believe in divine intelligence. I believe in intelligent design. And I can often ruminate on what does it mean that we were created in God's image? Even if that's not true, what does that mean on a literary level? What does that mean? What are the metaphorical implications of that? If I'm made in God's image and God is the creator, then therefore my role should be to help propagate or at least save or perpetuate life on earth in some respect. If we're given dominion over the beast and the fish and the fowl, that means we don't emulate them, we don't worship them, but we realize our role in this earth, right? And that's why something like 5G doesn't need planning permission to build a tower. Yes, and you're also not allowed to sue us based on any kind of health effects. And yeah, we don't really care about this, or we'll do the research, right? Like Motorola. This is a good story. I mean, Motorola, they fund this research because they expect the guy to come back and say, nope, they're all fine. Cell phones are good. And he didn't. So they said, okay, we'll say this. right? People, they're anti-life, they're anti-creation, and they're trying to reshape the world in their image. They're trying to remake mankind in their image, and what an ugly image it is indeed. My God knows this fucking mask thing is bullshit, right? My understanding of God knows that no, if that's tantamount to the flood, and he said he would never, God says in the Bible he would never flood the earth again. So that's tantamount to that. Like there's a great disaster that is, it's an invisible killer. And it's so deadly that if it was really that deadly, you would actually see dead bodies in the street, right? You'd think at one point people would be collapsing and dying, and it would be like the days of the bubonic plague, where you'd walk over bodies on your way to the shops. That's not the case. This is OCD, and either they are overreacting or this is part of a fucking more nefarious plot to make us act, what do you call it, icons in their video game thing. So the positive story is this. If you've not read Paradise Lost, I encourage all of you to read. Not even my version. I mean, when my version is ready, October, November. Again, patreon.com/Will Franken. I felt book 7 deals with the creation. So book 6 was where God chucks, actually through Jesus, he chucks Satan and all his legions out of heaven. And then book 7 begins with God saying, now that there's this vacant room, because these guys are gone, I'm going to create another world. And so it's these 6 days of creation with the 7th. So it's about the act of creation. It's about life itself. And a couple of days ago, I noticed that there's out this window, about 3 feet outside this little window here, just from my eyes only almost. It's beautiful. So while all this ugliness is going on over here, and Rishi Sunak is going, young people can move into houses like these, not people like, so I'm worthless to this economy, right? Maybe you're worthless to your economy because you're not ready to move into a brand new luxury home. So we're just like worthless people. We're people who just wanted to go to Asda like usual and not have to wear a mask. We're just those people. I wasn't going to move into a new. Do you know anybody? See, the question used to be, do you know anybody that has actually been affected by the COVID-19 thing? But now the question is, do you know anybody that actually is going to move into a new home after this? And if so, can you tell me what private island they live on? So there's 2 pigeons out here in this tree. And there's a mother and a father. And I feel so special because apparently nobody ever sees baby pigeons. And there she is, now she's sitting in a nest. You got a mother pigeon sitting in a nest about 2 or 3 feet outside this window. And I will take photos. I finally cleared out I'll take photos and I'll share them in my next video. And she's got a little husband or whatever, the mate that walks around her, and he was building, or at least fortifying the nest around her as she sat in it. And she was, as I was working on this particular book, adding the layering and the sound effects of God declaring his act of creation, she laid an egg. And she was there all day, and I said, I have a feeling she's laying an egg. And then she left for about an hour, and I went to the window, and there it was, a perfect white egg in that nest. And I just said, yes, I know, that's me, right? This is why the mental health awareness, hashtag mental health, that doesn't take into account people like me. There are a lot of there's a lot of psychological tests where that's one of the questions they ask you. Do you believe that a supreme being has any influence on your life? And they use that to determine whether you're cuckoo or not. So God has been long before this shit, long before the C of E leaders decided to take it up the ass for the government, scientists, and the technocrats. Long before that, it had long been pathologized by the mental health industry, the real wackos, right? But I believe that's a sign from God. And I think just for that brief, I mean, I actually couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep for, I got about 4 hours of sleep. I woke up this morning, I thought, they're really going to make us wear masks in the shop. And then I also couldn't get back to sleep because I was excited to see if the mother pigeon was still there. Now she's been there all morning, and if she goes away, there was one perfect white egg in there. She had laid an egg. There's a living precious thing. There's many living precious things out there. There's bees, little beautiful honeybees flying around right now. But there's a little unhatched creature out there, and what a gift from God I felt that was. I thought, when in the midst of all this artifice and internet, and we need an app and we need a mask and new normal and all that is intelligent design, not intelligence that was designed, not aggregate IQ, Dominic Cummings, not algorithms, not Neil Ferguson's projected computer models, right? None of that shit. That is intelligent design. And I found that I was so worried about I've got this own little I have a seagull I feed, and then I've been leaving, because I don't know I've never been in this situation before. I feel like I'm responsible for this egg now. And it takes 18 days to hatch. And when the husband's there and he's picking up the little, I leave a little bit of bread there and to show them you guys are cool. I don't know if you're into bread. I'm assuming you might be, but if you need some extra nutriments as you go through this difficult time, I leave it on the sill. I throw the bread down. The seagull won't come up here, so I throw his bread down. But I leave a little bit of bread there. But then I'm going to stop doing that because then I've noticed that the crows swoop up and eat that bread, and I don't want them to get too close to that egg. I don't know if crows eat baby eggs, but it's very important for me that, as it is for the mother, that bird comes to maturity. Partly because I want to see. I know with all this ugliness going on here, it takes 18 days to hatch. Apparently, I've been looking at all this stuff about pigeons, but that is God to me. I just can't be. My belief in God has intensified during all of this, and I guess you could say it's intensified by default because we're presented with something. This is government, science, technological celebrity. This is this, and yes, it may be. You know what? I reject all of this. I answer to a higher authority. And you guys have overstepped your bounds. You don't know anything about science. The only thing that you do know something about is technology. That's it. That's all you know. That's all you know. You know technology. But you don't know about the human soul. You don't know about art, intelligence. You don't know about education. Definitely don't know about education. And you're running the world, and you need to stop. And the only way we can get them to stop, I think, is just don't do what they say. We have to stop now, because if we don't, there's no coming back. It'll be like that idiot in Scotland. It'll be just like wearing a seatbelt, as automatic as wearing a seatbelt. Yes, but the seatbelt law is permanent. Are you saying that there's never going to be a time where we can take the mask off and dance in the field and say, rah, 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 the virus is gone? No, they're not saying that. They're saying this fucking thing's going to be with us forever. Oh, for Christ's sake. Hey, let me pour another cup of coffee, then I'll come back with my concluding thought. Well, I hope you guys have been enjoying this so far. I'm going to have to get my groceries soon while I can. Can't you just wear a mask just temporarily, Will? Why do you have to be so selfish? I can't believe someone would say it. It's like the idiot who left a comment the other day. I've been following your career for 15 years and you're not wearing a mask? It's man, people, it's worse than I thought. And again, because I'm not a eugenicist, I actually believe that you can unlearn things. You can learn things and you can unlearn things. There's no such thing as an intelligence gene. It's all about learning. And somewhere along the road, you kind of learn through all of this brainwashing that goes way back, the climate change thing or the hashtag, and the best way to defeat terrorism is to have Ariana Grande come back and host a One Love concert that the BBC can broadcast, well, not free, because they want the license fee, those greedy pigs. That's why, that's why it just hit me that they pretend that they hate the Tories, but they don't go really deep, right? So you never see a headline like, why are eugenicists in number 10? You don't see that headline because that implies, there's Nazi sympathizers in the motherfuckers. Michael Gove with his David Irving book, the Holocaust denier. They never go deep, but they go, could the government's plan really work? Some people it's the BBC's kind of little show, like, I don't see how this tax scheme is going to work. Some people, isn't the prime minister going to say something about masks? And it's kind of this little buddy thing that they pretend they don't like the Tories, but they don't ask they're not asking the Watergate questions. And because we're the culture's gotten so stupid. Watergate, that was a long process, right? They didn't get the big hot take and they took the president down. It was a slow drip. I mean, if you've not seen All the President's Men, I mean, it's, and because nobody has any patience anymore, they go, don't you think Dominic Cummings is a hypocrite? He's a hypocrite. He said, go deeper, bitch. Go deeper. There's a GlaxoSmithKline in Barnard Castle, and that's where he had to drive to test his eyesight. And 2 days later, an agreement is struck with Sanofi of France to develop a vaccine. I'm not saying it happened, but ask the fuck. You are a fucking journalist, motherfucker. Ask the question. No, because it's not a short take. Aren't you a hypocrite? Aren't you a hypocrite? Surface, short-term surface, right? Andrew Doyle, tweet. I'm in the culture war. I'm tweeting. Look at me, tweet. Ask the question. Who are these fucking people? All these things are important. So when I noticed that egg yesterday, I even wrote it down on the calendar. I wrote pigeon egg, July 10th, pigeon egg. And I feel like I'm being allowed to see something that not a lot of people, from a very close distance too. I'm being allowed to kind of observe and take part in something, and I hope they don't get freaked out that I'm, I think they know I'm cool, the pigeons, that I'm just absolutely grateful that they have chosen this spot to kind of build a home for now, especially with all of this anti-life stuff happening right in front of my eyes. That's there. And so when I saw that egg yesterday, and I thought, well, I'm working on the book of Paradise Lost that has to do with the act of creation. And I'm going to tell you something else. I have, with every book, and I might, when the whole project's done, I might do a video where I just talk about things that were happening in the world as each book with its different theme was being produced. And this has to be by far one of the most touching ones. Here I am, the war in heaven has been fought, and now we come to the book dealing with creation, and there is, in its perfection, it's perfect. That egg is perfect. It's divine intelligence. It's intelligent design. It's not intelligence that has been designed. It's not Toby Young, Comedy Unleashed's propaganda boy. It's not him. It's not him saying select the right embryos to increase the intelligence. It's not that. That's pure. That's perfection. That's God. And we have that God within us. I believe it. I believe we are created in that image. We have that God within us. Even and theoretically, that's the fucker with some of the theoretically anybody can be forgiven. But we have godless people calling the shots, and like I say, my belief has grown even more. Because if this is all there is, if this is all we have is masks and government control and new technologies that we don't really need, because we don't have the head or the heart to take these. We don't need these things, and all of the lies and all of the corruption. If that's all there is, man, I fucking die. Really, what life is this? If we're really gonna live out 1984, fucking kill me. But don't kill me, because I believe in God, and I believe, as difficult as it is right now, we're supposed to push as hard as we can for life. They had DNR orders. I remember that in the early days, DNR orders: do not resuscitate. Right? So old people, a lot of old people, they were killed. Right? Well, dad, that's it. That's the attitude towards life. Whether that's, the proliferation of abortion in the name of convenience on one end of the spectrum, or euthanasia for the old folks on the other end of the spectrum. It's all about the people in their prime thinking that they're the wise ones of the age. We're in the prime. We're the wise ones. We're the people with the 5G phones. You know. But if you believe in God, I think that's enough to keep you going some days. And that fucking egg. And it was funny. I saw that egg. And I was taking a break. I was taking a cigarette break. I know these are bad. The plan is to quit after Paradise Lost is done in October, which I might have no choice anyway because, the economy might be so severely gutted, then they might raise the price of cigarettes up to 25 pounds a packet. But when I saw that egg, it's been about 20 minutes, because I sat there for 20 minutes looking at that egg, and I don't know what she was doing. I guess she needs a rest or something, stretch her legs, wings. When I saw that egg, about 20 minutes I sat there and looked at that egg, and I just meditated on the perfection. And I thought of 2001: A Space Odyssey. That ending always. I never had any problems with that ending. Some people get confused. It makes perfect sense to me. See, because that's the creation of the universe. That one egg is that microcosm and the macrocosm are one and the same, and that one egg contains within it the entire universe. It's the William Blake line I always love. How do you know but every bird that cuts the airy way is not an immense world of delight closed by your senses five. So 2001, that always made sense to me. Yeah, at the end, that's what you're getting. Every time that baby is born, every time that new life comes into fruition, that is another magnificent, expansive, limitless universe being brought into being. That's what that egg is. And I think it's no accident that's happening as I'm working on the story of creation. And I shudder to think what's going to happen when she finally eats that apple. Oh, boy, vey. What the fuck? Because something has happened with every book. There has been a very, for example, the War in Heaven. That's the destruction of the garden. That was a garden, a vast garden that has been mowed. I should show you this one day. I wish I'd taken a before and after picture so you guys would know what I'm talking about. The actual destruction of a garden. The symbolism is overwhelming sometimes. So I meditated upon that egg, and I didn't actually meditate. I didn't get the incense and I stared at that egg in wonder and awe. That perfect egg. And then after about 20 minutes, I said, you know what? I have a hunch that if I were to check the BBC right now, there would be something so antithetical to the perfection of that egg. So antithetical to life. It was just a hunch. Because sometimes, God reveals things in stark contrast. What kept the slaves going? So many slaves kept going. They singing the gospel songs, right down there in the plantation fields. It was even if it was a lie, it kept them going. And that pig Stalin, he knew as well. If we want to defeat the Nazis, we're going to have to open up the churches a little bit. I know they're weird, these peasants with their beliefs in God, but we might have to open up the churches. Because if we don't open up the churches, then they might start thinking they don't have anything to live for. They might realize that all this starvation and stuff, might make life untenable. So what's the difference, Nazi or commie? So open the churches, just, briefly open the churches, get them to work, right? So sure enough, I checked the BBC site just after that, the brainwashing corporation, the British brainwashing corporation. And there it was. Face masks to be made compulsory in shops. How antithetical, right? That's God, this is not. That egg is God in action. This is soulless, heartless, and brainless mankind in action, trying to strip fellow man of his free will and his free choice. So, if you want to use more archaic terms, God and the devil. What am I going to do? Like, well, don't say that. Well, say what? What? I'm not going to get on TV? If I say that I believe in God, I wasn't going to get on TV in the first place. Because I was actually doing comedy. I wasn't doing stupid, oh, yes, my girlfriend and her tampons. I wasn't doing really, what they wanted from me, the BBC, from day one, was they wanted me to come over here and go, you know what, in America, where I come from, they're all stupid because they read the Bible. They read the Bible and they all shoot guns. They wanted me to do that. There were a lot of Americans that came over here and they did their bit, and they got on stage and they said, they made fun of Americans who don't believe in gay marriage, and they made fun of how backwards Americans are. They did their part. They came over here and they prostituted America out. They served America up to the BBC on a platter and said, yes, they're all retarded in America. Yes, they all believe that stupid Bible of theirs. And they did their bit. And some of them got on the BBC with that. They did their little part. They didn't get big parts in the BBC, but they did their little bit, right? They gave them what they wanted. They gave the snobs what they wanted. And I came over here and I said, this is bullshit. And to make matters worse, I would say that you're taking the worst aspects of American comedy and you're bringing it over here. You're taking the worst people of America and holding them up as good Americans, like Oprah Winfrey. You take her self-help, mental health bullshit and you bring it to England? What happened to the Faulty Towers episode where John Cleese was afraid to talk to a psychiatrist? That was once upon a time, I think, the correct attitudes towards psychiatrists. Don't tell them anything. Don't tell them anything. I dated a psychiatrist once, many years ago in New Jersey, and she was fucking nuts. And like the naive person I could be sometimes, I guess I always assumed they were kind of more cold and they had their shit figured out, so then they were going to try to help out. I didn't realize a lot of these psychiatrists are just fucking mad, proper mad, needy, crazy. And then that's why they get into it, because they want to. It's better to talk about other. Well, I thought I was crazy. This guy, likes to eat his own feces. Maybe that's why they get into it, so they can compare it against themselves. And I was telling my girlfriend that we might have to. I said we might have to find a Nigerian church. I just threw that out at random. Like there's got to be a Nigerian church somewhere, because I don't want to go back to the C of E. Their surrender was fucking abhorrent. Their surrender to the faith. Well, we can do 5 out of the 9 means of worship and still be in compliance with the government. And it's like, yeah, that's right. That all makes sense now. The Queen always talks about how she's such a great Christian and my Christianity is very important. Well, it would be, because you're the fucking Pope of the Church of England, aren't you? This whole thing was predicated on a divorce anyway, and I like the old services, but now we see what they're like at a crisis, and in a crisis, they believe the government unflinchingly. They believe a profligate like Boris Johnson unflinchingly, and they shut the doors, and they can't figure out how to get 2 meters between people, even if they had to do that, which is bullshit. They don't have to do that, but the 2 meters in a church, they couldn't figure out how to do that in Canterbury Cathedral. Stay home. I'll be there on Zoom, says Justin Trendy Welby. So I said, there's got to be a Nigerian church where people still kind of believe in something. I thought about the Seventh-day Adventists too. Like, I'm not necessarily anti-medicine, but I'm anti this fucking vaccine. And one thing that it has caused me to look at is I've looked more into like, oh yes, of course, yeah, if it's a natural remedy, they don't want that, because people can get that shit for free. You've got to have the government scientific technological bullshit, So I'm looking into that stuff as well. So Seventh-day Adventist, at least they might possibly be on the right side when it comes to, what can we do to stop this vaccine being fucking rammed down our throats or in our whatever. They are forcing us to swallow this new ugly world that's only fit for people who have neither a brain nor a heart. This smart city, green, by the way, if I haven't said it enough, green means anti-environment. That's what it means, because they're saying now that planting trees could be bad for the environment. Tell that to that mother and her young. They're saying that. Planting trees could be bad for the environment. And it's also bad for 5G towers, right? Don't fuck with that tree. I know I live in a house. This is a man-made construction. I get it. We're humans. We live in a human material world. But we must now more than ever seek to preserve these things. And when they talk about putting wind turbines in the ocean and chopping down trees and more broadband, CO2 emissions and all that. CO2, what about the mask? You're getting your daily dose of CO2 and constantly emitting back in your face, aren't you? So Sunak is promising green jobs and retraining people, and that means tech. That means anti-environment, and that means if you wanted to do anything else with your life, young people, if you had a career path you wanted to explore, things you wanted to study, gone, right? They're going to use this pandemic to retrain you to do something that you had might be like teaching AI bots how to do their job better, whatever, but it's not things that I knew as a kid, and it's weird to be 47 at this time. I came into this world where there was one landline in our house and 3 channels. That was it. We didn't know how good we had it. I mean, the innovation, the fact that we were able to organize, I was able to organize get-togethers with my friends in Missouri, and go out to the country and drink some beers. We were able to do that without social, what do you call it, the media. I guess we used the landline and we said, I'll see you at Greenbrier, and we'd go out there, and if they weren't there, we'd wait, we'd smoke some pot, we'd drink, we'd actually live life. Well, that's life out there, and that's God in all his glory. Just as it is something as magnificent as photos of Jupiter, and the vast expanse of the infinitude of the cosmos, just as beautiful as that precious little egg out there. Because that is another universe coming into being. And it's just the stark contrast with masks in the shop. So to the people of Texas, fight. What do they call it? Civil disobedience. Don't wear the mask. The Costco thing, I saw this Costco thing. There's a couple of Costco videos. And of course, there's an old man looking at it. Yes, I know. Old man trying to peek in to see what's going on. I know. You're not allowed to see. They've shut the gates, right? This is NWH Smith Associates. They're the ones who got the backhander. And they've sealed you off from knowing what the hell's going on with that garden. You don't get to know. You don't get to know, old man. Probably 80, look about 80 years old. Shaking his head as he's walking by. I know. It's no country for old men, is it, my friend? No country for old men. I was old before my time. So this guy, who was so funny, the Costco employee is saying, I'm not letting him have his groceries because he's not wearing a mask. And then the camera goes to, I don't know who's filming, but the camera goes to this kind of large bearded guy. And they say, why aren't you wearing a mask? And he goes, I don't know, maybe because I woke up this morning and thought I was in a fucking free country. And I'm paraphrasing. I think he said that, actually. He actually said those words. He said, no groceries for you. And he takes the groceries away. And I thought, good for him. It makes, good, right on, Funny, too, right? It's a bit like, not quite Sean Penn in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but my favorite scene from that is when Mr. Hand says to Sean Penn, why do you continually waste my time? Why are you constantly late? And he goes, oh, no. The fact that he actually considers the question, but I love that answer. Because I woke up this morning, I thought I was in a fucking free country. Well, the thing with Costco was, like the idiots out here figured out, they go, oh, actually, you can't get 2 meters between people. But we still want them to spend lots of money and travel and go on the tube and do all this stuff. You sure you can't get 2 meters? Yeah, that's right. It'd probably be really expensive to do that. I'll tell you what, masks, make them mandatory, right? That's what happened. That's why I'm not wearing a fucking mask, right? And then the fuckers are doing it again. I thought they probably used the Glaswegians as a test case, and they found the Glaswegian who said what they want, just like they found the George Floyd guy who said what they wanted. Yeah. There's only one reason, the iPhone, be able to get the word out. Like, find that guy, but don't find the black guy with, a kind of a balanced view towards individuality and not necessarily making your skin color the be all and end all, and able to look at something and say, we don't know what the motive. Don't ignore him, but present this as that. That's what they do. They probably found a Glaswegian who would say, that's what they, as long as I'm safe, I believe in fighting. I do, but I also believe it got to be safe, it's safe and courtesy and nice and safe. So a little test case, now they're going to whip it out here, Well, and Texas, right? We took care of the Cowboys, we took care of the Glaswegians. Now it's the rest of the pieces will fall into place, and we'll all be in a fucking mess to God knows what end. Costco wanted to keep the customers in, which means no social distancing because we want them all in at once. We can't social distance, but I tell you what we can do: masks. Right? But don't fall for the bullshit. God bless you everywhere, everybody the world over. Everybody, everybody's humble servant, Will Franken. Good night.